now we'll get in the case study. Let's set it up so that we can have a conversation when these guys come in. Okay. All right. Incrementality study. We did two things. We did holdout test and the media mix model, and for the Perfect Jean, which is a DTC brand. So here is the brand brief. The fashion brand, fast-growing e-commerce startup, no retail. They're growing fast, $20-30 million run rate, but they're growing, of course. About 3 years old, still pretty young. Primarily grew up on Instagram and Facebook. So this is very typical for DTC brands. They hang on to one channel, and then that's how they kind of bootstrap their growth. And then eventually they identify other channels to diversify into. And exactly the template here, the archetype here is exactly that. They grew up on Instagram and Facebook, and they added TikTok, they added Google Shopping later in the life cycle. So those are all smaller emerging channels for them, but the big bread and butter is Facebook and Instagram. Okay, they have an MTA tool called NorthBeam, a multi-touch attribution tool called NorthBeam, and M Squared. I'm the consultant for them, helping them figure out advanced attribution. Okay. This is the brand itself. Okay, the two gentlemen who are coming to discuss this: Ovadia, who's the founder, an incredibly smart guy, has a finance background, came from hedge funds and venture capital kind of place. So he approaches the whole space with a very analytical, data-driven lens, because that's the vantage point he has on the business. And then Eli, of course, you guys got to hear Eli in the last class. He's a growth marketer. He was born as a growth marketer. His first job was a growth marketer, and in DTC brands. So this is kind of what he does, right? So the way he thinks about it is very native to how growth marketers kind of approach Facebook, Instagram, TikTok media buying. And hopefully you'll also get to experience that personalities, how these guys feel to work with, right? And it's a big part of the education also, is to understand who are the human beings who are running these brands and how they think about the problem statement, so you can kind of figure out how the world looks from their eyes, so to speak. Okay. All right, gentlemen. Okay, what are you looking for? In fact, the sensitivity analysis that I did in the class is in fact modeled after the Perfect Jean. I of course changed the numbers a little bit so that it protects the confidentiality of the brand, but the insights are the same, right? So it's fundamentally about a DTC brand, and very much modeled around their portfolio, number one. Number two is that the biggest issue for them, if you remember the last class, was they went through the whole analysis for scale and figured out that, wait, Facebook and TikTok, I'm investing a lot in those channels. I'm not clear. It's hitting my $100 CAC. I cannot pay more than $100 per customer. If I'm bringing on a new customer and it's costing me $150, I'm losing my shirt. Eventually, I'll go out of business. I can't do that. It has to be under $100. That's the most I can afford. And look like both Facebook and TikTok were around that. And some reads were on this side of the $100 CAC, and some reads were on this side, but they were kind of hovering around the $100. So the first thing they wanted to test when I walked through the analysis with them was to, hey, let's run a holdout test and figure out where it actually is. Let's get a better estimate of what the true CAC is, the incremental CAC is, or CPA is, for these two channels. Okay, and that's the impetus for the test. Okay, what is my two biggest channels doing for me, for my business? Okay, this is the quick requirements. I'll skip this. I don't think you need this, but fundamentally takeaway here is that their target CPA is $100. That's the target CPA. They're trying to figure out, where does Facebook land, where does TikTok land against that $100 CPA. Now, if it is less than $100, they would scale the channel. If it's more than $100, they would cut the channel, right? That's simply. And if it's on $100, they'll hold the spend. That's the decision matrix for them, right? That's what kind of it outlines over here. All right. So if we went through this last class, the sensitivity analysis. The one big thing that they said when they saw this is that they saw this and they said, dude, this can be true. I just don't believe. I know my business. I'm a new brand. I'm 3 years old. You cannot tell me that 44% of my customers are walking in the door without media. If I just turn off Instagram and Facebook, nobody will know about us. We are a jeans brand. There are 1 million brands who sell jeans. Nobody knows about us. How is it possible that about half my business is organic? It's just not possible. I just know my business. It's not possible, right? But the analysis is like not picking it up. We're not able to see it. So they said, I think it could be virality. It could be word of mouth. It's not media driven, but it's very affordable jeans, like $80 or something like that. So maybe people are buying jeans and then they're like, buying a second pair for the wife or the husband is buying a second pair, or the friends are they're buying it for the kids or whatever. And there is word of mouth virality in the business that is not obviously media driven, not capturable in a last click basis or in a test basis, but something's happening there. So what we did, therefore, is that we said, okay, let's try and model virality using an MMM. Let's use an MMM to model the virality. And let's all run a test to understand the efficacy of Facebook and TikTok. Okay, those are the two things that we took away as the next steps here, okay? Okay, now, which is kind of what we're going to talk about, right? So this is the workflow. We went through all this. Okay, this is the geo test design for that we implemented in market, okay? There are about 15 control markets. I just picked a few to show here, but there's about 15 control markets, and they all have different weights that came out of the Facebook GeoLift package. This is the mix of spend. Majority of about 70% of the spend is Facebook, Instagram for them. About 17% is TikTok. Another 15% is every other channel. Mostly Google, but a few other channels as well. Okay. Now, okay, that's number one. We had 2 holdout cells, one for Facebook, one for TikTok. Okay. What does it mean? In this holdout cell, these 4 markets, Utah, Connecticut, Maryland, DC, we turn off Facebook. So these 1 to 4 markets represent roughly about 5% revenue share, or 5% market share for them, these 4 markets, okay? And so when you turn off 60% of spend in market, 70% of spend in market, which is Facebook spend, how much will the revenue drop by? That's the question. That's the question fundamentally we're asking in the geo test. How much will it drop by? And that is going to be represents the impact of Facebook nationally. Okay, we've identified these 4 markets to represent the national whole. Okay, these 4 markets are now a microcosm of the overall the US market for this brand. Now, when we turn off Facebook, how much ever it drops in revenue represents the contribution of Facebook nationally. That's how we're going to interpret it. Okay, same idea for TikTok, but smaller spend. We expect a smaller drop in revenue. Again, 4 markets, roughly 6% revenue share. Idea is the same. Turn off TikTok, see how much it drops. Okay. And this is the execution. This was the execution we put in place. We designed the test over here. There was a week of cool down, right? And this is sort of a preference. If you can afford it, you should cool down, which means that you turn off the markets and then you cool the markets because, we talked about ad stock. If you remember the MMM section, all media typically has a tail, okay? For Facebook, Instagram, the tail may be fairly small, about 5-7 days maybe. But if you do TV buys, if you do radio buys, the tail may be much flatter. It may go over 60 days, 30 days, 20, 45 days, more not. You can model that using what's called ad stock. There is if you remember, Mari was walking us through the ad stock functions you can use to model the tail. Okay. Now, how do you prevent impact of media here into the test period? You cool the markets. What is cool down? You basically shut down the media. So the media, all these 4 plus 4, 8 markets, these 4 markets don't have Facebook, these 4 markets don't have TikTok, and you cool them for a week. So the effect of the tail dies down, and then you start reading the test starting from here. That's the flight design, okay? Now, it's not always possible to do. In this case, they were able to afford it, and they wanted as clean a read as possible. So they implemented a cool down period as well, okay? So this is the test design, okay? Let me pause right there before I jump into the next slide. Any questions? Okay. All right, let's go. All right. So this is all stuff they knew before. Okay. They have platform attribution actually for Facebook reporting. Facebook is self-attributing 61% of total conversions. Okay. 61% total conversions. Their self-reported CPA is $66. So it's well under the $100 CPA mark, right? So they're like, well, this is great. It's working fantastic. And that's what they've been using to scale the spend. Okay. Now, at some point, Eli and Ovadia decided, well, you know what, we need something more. They implemented a post-purchase survey. The post-purchase survey is giving somewhat of a little bit more modest result. Facebook is at 48% total contribution. The CPA slightly higher at $83. It's still affordable. It's still under the $100 mark, and they're still going to scale with Facebook. Then they got multi-touch attribution. They went to a vendor called Northbeam, and Northbeam MTA not being projected even lower, 35%, slightly higher, 115. So here they wouldn't scale. They would actually hold the spend. If they believe the MTA number, they would hold the spend. So you can see how these numbers are changing as you go kind of take on more advanced attribution approaches, right? But multi-touch attribution, everybody knows has pitfalls. You cannot track the impressions very much anymore. You can only track clicks. So you have to take that number with a pinch of salt. Okay. And there's a lot of opaqueness about these numbers, right? Because you don't exactly know how it's modeling this 35%, what's going into it, what's the regression models, and in what situations it will hold, what situations it won't hold. A lot of questions about that is unanswered, right? So they have this. Now, same numbers for TikTok. Self-reported TikTok is 12%, $77 CPA, still very much about scale. Post-purchase surveys lower at 9%, about exactly $100. So you would actually hold the spend if you believe the post-purchase survey. If you believe the MTA, you would start cutting spend on TikTok. It looks like TikTok is very expensive. You have to reduce the spend so that you can bring it to a point where it's actually affordable. Okay. Now, if you're in market, you will know that TikTok's attribution, self-attribution, is pretty weak compared to Facebook. Facebook has the best self-attribution in the industry. TikTok has a much weaker attribution, and it's kind of mid-funnel as well, as opposed to Google, which is lower funnel. So typically you will end up seeing worse results than you would if it had the same kind of strength to self-attribute, okay? So this is the situation. So they're really asking the question, what is the real CPA? Can I get a better understanding of CPA for these two channels? Because if it's well over $100, I need to start pulling down. If it's under $100, I need to scale into it. There's an opportunity for me to scale. Okay, that's the situation when the test is in flight. The questions it asks. So two reads we're taking, one through GeoTest, one through MNet. Okay, all right. Now let's overlay the decision matrix on top of it. Okay, so we just talked about this. If it's Facebook, you would scale it if you believe these numbers. If you believe the MTA CPA, it'll hold. Whereas here, you will end up with two different decisions, right? If you believe the self-attributed, you would scale. If you believe the MTA, you would cut, right? So it kind of like all three decisions are possible here, right? Beautiful use case here where this is the problem that you'll end up with all the time. You look at these numbers and that every number tells you to do a different thing. And you're like, what the hell am I supposed to do, right? So that's why you're running the test right now, okay? So the test ran, and here is the reads, okay? So we talked about this in class. The next session is about the Facebook GeoLift library. Why the beauty about okay, let me actually show you the outputs as well. I think Mari, are you in class? Are you here?
Yes. There
you go. So Mari is here. So Mari is the data scientist who ran it for me. These are the results that he produced. Okay, so this is the Facebook result, and I mean, it looks. It probably looks like this. When it comes out of the library, the output will look like this. Okay, he was kind enough to take a bunch of these outputs and dump them into Excel so we can read it more easily. And he pulled a bunch of these outputs. Okay, so the most important output is this output over here, the percentage lift. Okay, and it'll come out in the library looking like this. Where is it? Here, look at that, 34%, right? So what is it saying? There is 34% lift. So the markets drop by 34%. Okay. In fact, he has a beautiful counterfactual chart somewhere. Where is that? Let me just.
I think in the bottom.
Let me remove. There's unfreeze panes. Where is that? Freeze, unfreeze. Okay. So I think I moved it a little bit. Look at this. This is his. This is the observed. This is the counterfactual. There's a big difference. Okay. So the difference between that two is the lift, and that's 34%. When you sum it all up, it's saying it's 34%. Okay. And the Facebook GeoLift also produced a couple of beautiful charts here. Let me see if I can show that here. This is the period. You can see this is the period of the time before the test. When you ran the test, it dropped significantly in those markets, right? So you can visually see it. You can't always see it like this because 34% is a big number. Usually testing for 5%, 6%, it's kind of hard to catch it with just a naked eye. Same thing here, you can catch the naked eye, right? So now the estimate is 34%. If it's a 34% number lift, the CPA is $118. Okay, it's kind of in the hold situation right now, right? You'll say, okay, it's kind of in the $100 mark. Well, if it's 130, I would cut. It's exactly probably on the line where I would start reducing. But week over week there'll be variability, so you'll probably hold the spend, right? Okay, now let's look at TikTok. Okay, TikTok, when he was looking at it, he saw a 9.4% lift, but the p-value was very high, or it didn't have as much significance. It didn't have the statistical strength. Now, because it's a much smaller spend. It's not moving as big of a market, and the business itself is moving really pretty quickly. And you will kind of see it here in the prediction. Look at this. It's right on top of each other, right? It's not as clear. If you look at the counterfactual versus observed versus counterfactual here, it was very clear. You can see a clear shift over here. And you can see it's kind of all over the place here. It's all right on top of each other, right? It's not very clear that there is lift, and therefore the p-value, as you can expect, is not very strong. So what I did also is I ran a linear model, okay, a difference in differences model as well, so I can get two reads on this, right? It turned out the difference in differences model came back with a stronger lift, okay? It came back with 13% lower CPA. So here it's not clear. Now you will still end up with two decisions, and here it was a clear decision. I'll hold. I think I don't need to cut. I don't need to scale. I think I'll hold here. At here you'll hold. Here there's some room for scale, right? So there's room for scale. In fact, I haven't had a chance to discuss this with Ovadia and Eli. So we're going to discuss it live with them in the class when they show up. How do they feel about the result? What they might want to do with it? Okay, so this is the read.
I'm here, by the way. Whenever you're ready, I'm on.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here too.
Hey, Eli. Thanks, Eli and Ovadia. Thanks for jumping on.
We just wanted to make sure you don't say anything bad about us before we announced ourselves.
Shoot, thank God. Did I do it? Did I trip myself?
It's all good. Whenever you're ready, we're standing by. I'm listening. This is really interesting.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay, so this is the geo test. So we had two reads. In fact, when the last week when we were discussing it, I first got the linear reads, then I got the Facebook GeoLift reads. So this looked much stronger. I remember Eli being elated about this number because he really wanted TikTok to win, and it was like TikTok won. He was like, "Freak, that's great. I feel really good about how this turned out." Yesterday, when I was sharing the results, he was a little bummed that it came out here. We'll talk about that and how he feels about it. So there's emotion attached to these results, right? And I can totally feel it, even though I'm only a consultant. I still feel the emotion that the clients have attached to their media, right? And it should be. It's near and dear to them. Okay, now media mix. So we also built a media mix model. Mari again built one for us, and here is a media mix model. I think we might have discussed this in class in the media mix section. So again, if what we did is that we introduced something called what's the word you use, Mari? You called it autoregressive terms. He calls it autoregressive terms, which is like the outputs of this week or last week become inputs for this week, right? So we kind of like use the sales of previous weeks as predictors of this week's sales, and let's see. And the intention is to see if customers are recommending other customers, right? Is there kind of this effect, right? And as beautifully as you said, like about 41%, which is again a number that seems really high, which we haven't had a chance to discuss also, which means that about 41% new customers are being referred by other customers, right? That's kind of what the implication is, which is a huge takeaway here. There's a lot of word of mouth in the business is what it means, okay? And we'll see how Ovadia and Eli feel about that, okay? Now, but also, if you look at these numbers over here, Facebook is at a 38% lift. If you remember, here it was 34%. And 40%, it's 38% MMM produces a result. MMM usually has an effect of averaging the results, right? It's kind of the coefficients average over a period of time. So if it's doing well now compared to later, you will see sort of a little bit more of a dampened effect because of the averaging approach that MMM takes. It's kind of that's how coefficients get estimated anyway, right? And TikTok is at 9% compared to 12% with MMM. Now let's bring it all together. Now everything is now lined up. Now these are the reads across everything. So base attribution, advanced attribution, MTA, Geo, MMM, all of these lined up. Now let's line up the decision. Okay, now Facebook's lined up over here. It feels from where I stand, Facebook's a clear decision to hold the investment. At 106 from MMM. 118 from Geo, it's close to the $100 mark. Okay, we would hold. What would you do with TikTok? TikTok, if you believed MMM, there's still room for scale, right? And if you look at this little sort of thing over here, this is the attributed CPA. And, it's kind of landing right what the self-attributed CPA is here, okay? And if you believe Geo, it's over here, okay? Now, I'm going to show you one more thing before I open up the floor for questions. So this is how I would look at it. When you take it all out and then like line up everything. Now, line up Geo, post-purchase survey, MTA, MMM, all the multipliers. You calculate all the multipliers for each one of the different approaches. Now, this is a beautiful case study where you got a chance to see everything, okay? Now let's ask the question to our friends from Perfect Gene. Ovadia, Eli, if you guys can come on camera, what is this? Of course, I told the class, we've not had a real chance to discuss this. What would you do here? Specifically on TikTok, once you look at this and I no words in your mouth. Why don't you react to this as though you're seeing it for the first time?
I guess more of a complex answer I have here, and for context, yeah, Madan sent us the actual new values last night, so we didn't have time to really discuss. But what I would do is, so I guess the way we manage, I guess it's just like dependent on the way we manage budgets here, and we have a daily new customer ROAS target. And what I would personally do with this data is I would calculate an ink percentage based off of the Geo results, and I would use that ink percentage and basically take our probably the last 7 days in platform ROAS from TikTok and Facebook and calculate an incremental ROAS. And based off of that incremental ROAS, I would manage my budgets to how they're doing right now. So I wouldn't really, obviously the past data is very important, but that was around 2 months ago. So I don't really I wouldn't really make a change based off of that. Oh, am I going to push or hold? What's my, I guess, advanced attribution CPA? I would calculate my current incremental CPA and then manage my budget based off of those. So I guess there's a scenario where Facebook's incremental ROAS is a lot higher, and I'll probably shift budget from TikTok to Facebook, or TikTok's incremental ROAS is a lot higher and I'll shift budgets that way. And I'm always managing towards our new ROAS target.
So I just want to calibrate what he just said. When he said incrementality, what he's talking about is the multipliers. You're saying you'll take the Geo multipliers that came out of the Geo test, but you'll apply the multipliers to last week's data, not just look at April, May's data, but look at June data, July data, and then make decisions more on recent history as opposed to history from 2 months back. You can also see the growth marketed in him, right? He lives in the moment, right? He lives last week, today, yesterday. 2 months back looks like ancient history for him. So you can see how the world is so much in the current for him.
Well, everything,
Madan,
everything's always changing,
Yes, of course.
Every day it's different. So
go ahead, Rashmi, you had a question?
Yes, my question is, so Eli, you mentioned that you look at multipliers from Geo test. Why specifically Geo test and not the other tests? There's data from MMM, there's data from MTA, there's data from the linear read as well. So why specifically Geo test and not the others?
a couple of reasons. The main reason why is because Madan told me that's the most accurate measurement. So I trust his opinion. And it's also I also believe it's because I've delved into how each of them are calculated, and I also do believe it's the most accurate measurement because it's really showing it basically really shows the difference in basically showing media in those markets and not showing media there, because that's actually what we're doing instead of what people are saying or whatever. Or an MMM is I guess I don't know if Madan touched on this, but the MMM, it's like a product of inputs. We did some random inputs with Madan in our MMMs, and we ran an MMM with random inputs of just purchasers in the last couple of weeks, and we got weird results. So it's just, I think the GeoTest is the most accurate.
Yeah, he's got the most confidence in it, which I believe the GeoTest is is the highest quality output you get. Ovadia, why don't you react to it, sir? What do you think?
I'm gonna have not the answer you want. I'm gonna say I think the TikTok side of it, our spend is too low and the test results are inconclusive. And so I revert back to gut and the old way of doing it.
No,
Yeah,
there are
there's
multiple
only-
reads that still support it. There are multiple reads that
Yeah.
support scaling into it too, right? So it's not-
Exactly. So I think like, so we're looking at this and you have like, if you pull up that final results again, there's a little bit on my side. I have a like taking the 1,000 foot up. I say like, what's been working for the business and how aggressive do we want to be? So we have multiple ways that show that we're at TikTok's. The Facebook side is clear, right? We have a lot of room. Platform is probably too aggressive, but we're not in bad shape here. And we also know that 118 and 106 and 115 that we have from MTA is probably a little too high, because there's something else going on from virality, or even on the post-purchase side, it means that there's a lot going on Facebook that's happening that's not being captured elsewhere, probably.
Mhm.
On the TikTok side, I think it is the MTA, I think we can agree is probably wrong, but when you have platform, MMM, geo, and post-purchase kind of all at this 12 or 9%, and it's a big difference between 12 or 9 in terms of where the values are. It's hard to really say directionally what's right. So we could average them or something. I would say in this case, I would go conservative, because given the amount of error band here, I would probably go conservative, not make a big decision until we have more spend and run another test.
Beautiful.
And that's like a very fast read. That's not like a, hey, let's sit and study this. But an interesting question though is, at worst, I think one of the interesting things is one of the questions, let me rephrase that. One of the questions that this really pops up for me is, why is MTA on TikTok have so much more, is so far out of line versus the MTA for Facebook? Like that to me is very, very interesting and odd, because all the other ones are kind of in the same boat. Like we know that TikTok's internal attribution is poor and they're not giving themselves enough credit. And we know that Facebook is probably taking too much credit, but it is odd to me that the MTA is treating Facebook and TikTok differently, right? Because the MTA model is pretty discrete. So it's doing something and it should not have it's doing something and it shouldn't be favoring one versus the other. So it's very interesting to me that there's quite as big a difference there. And that to me is one of the very interesting things that I think we could even talk to Northbeam about and say, like, what's going on here? Like, it's a little bit weird.
So far out.
And I wonder if like that's something that I'd want to learn about where the bias is. But overall, yeah, this I think speaks to shifting a little bit of budget from Facebook to TikTok. That seems like a pretty reasonable approach here across the board. But in terms of being aggressive, I would probably be hesitant until we have more spend available in a cleaner read in September or October, when we don't have seasonality and we can get something that gives us a little bit more confidence, I would say.
Beautiful. Eli, do you remember off top of your mind, what's the view through component in TikTok? View through versus click through? I know Facebook.
Oh, good question.
Right.
I don't know.
Okay. I know that your Facebook click throughs are very, very strong. I think 80% of your conversions in a one day view perspective is click through. But I don't know if TikTok's in the same place. I have to imagine TikTok's more view through, right?
I think just based off of the difference in what we see in platform and what we're seeing on our post-purchase survey, I would really assume it's one of two things. The view through is a lot bigger, or TikTok doesn't attribute well. It's one of the two.
It could be both, right? It could be a combination, right?
I don't think TikTok has that tool. Let me check. I'll check later. I'll let you know.
I thought they report view throughs. Okay, but we may actually have a data somewhere. If I had to just give a reaction to nobody, it's probably because MTAs have not been able to track view throughs, for many years right now, right? So they have to estimate the impact of view through, and MT is not really in a good place to estimate it. So as the more
It's fair.
the more upper funnel it is, less MTA is able to understand its true effect. The more click
That
through
makes
it is,
sense.
better it is. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
This is a beautiful sort of a compilation. So you get to see all of these in one place, right? And I loved how you calibrated your moves, right? You're like saying, well, I'll just like, make small moves, not aggressive moves. Makes beautiful sense, right?
We're conservative. That's the truth.
You can see an operator in you when you say that. Just like hold the stick in easy. Don't jerk it too much.
Remember the rules of the game. Rule number 1 is don't lose money. Rule number 2 is don't forget rule number 1. So says Warren Buffett, and
That's right.
I take that to heart.
Thank you. What